Hello students, how are you? In the previous video we started the new chapter, that is respiration in organisms. We talked about that what is the need for respiration, and then we discussed about that how is the energy released in the process of respiration. That we discussed that the oxygen reaches in the cell, it breaks down the food, and in the process the energy is released. Okay, then we talked about types of respiration. I told you there are two types of respiration, that are aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. Let's take a quick look at that and then we'll be moving forward. Aerobic respiration, it was the kind of respiration that takes place in the presence of oxygen, whereas anaerobic respiration is the respiration that happens in the cell in the absence of oxygen. Aerobic respiration leads to release of high amount of energy in living organism, whereas anaerobic respiration results in low amount of energy. Human beings and many other animals undergo aerobic respiration. Yeast and sometimes human beings also undergo anaerobic respiration. Carbon dioxide and water are also released in the aerobic respiration. In anaerobic respiration, there is lactic acid is released, where yeast releases ethanol and carbon dioxide. Okay, then we discuss the reaction that glucose plus oxygen, that was the aerobic respiration, gives you carbon dioxide plus water, and yes, definitely the release of energy, large amount of energy was released. Second, anaerobic respiration, the glucose in partially when the oxygen was not available for the respiration, then the glucose break down into ethanol and carbon dioxide. Okay, so these were the two types, that the aerobic respiration and the anaerobic respiration. Next topic is anaerobes. Organisms that can exist in the absence of air are called anaerobes. So definitely if they are existing in the absence of the air, then they are called anaerobes, and they can perform the anaerobic respiration. They undergo anaerobic respiration and hence can get energy even without oxygen. For example, yeast, these are the unicellular organisms that exist in the absence of oxygen as well. As a byproduct, they release ethanol and carbon dioxide. That is why they are used to make wine and beer. This is called alcohol fermentation. Means fermentation is the process in which anaerobic respiration takes place. Okay, so the organism that can exist in the absence of air, these are called anaerobes, and they undergo anaerobic respiration. As they are undergoing anaerobic respiration, we discussed that they can survive without oxygen also. There are two types of respiration, aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. In the aerobic respiration, it requires oxygen, whereas anaerobic does not require oxygen. So if they are undergoing anaerobic respiration, they can get energy even without oxygen, but the difference is that the amount of energy that is released is very less as compared to the aerobic respiration. Okay, now next is anaerobic respiration in human beings. Sometimes muscles of human beings can respire without oxygen. When this happens, this generally happens when we undergo a heavy exercise such as running, weightlifting, cycling, or walking for a longer duration. In such situations, the muscles require more energy and the supply of oxygen is not enough. So what are the conditions where anaerobic respiration takes place? See, anaerobic respiration is the respiration that takes place without oxygen. It generally happens when we undergo a heavy exercise like running, weightlifting, cycling, or walking for a longer duration. Okay, hence anaerobic respiration takes place in the muscles. Now, as a result of muscles also produce lactic acid along with energy, because I told you in the anaerobic respiration that other products of the anaerobic respiration is lactic acid, or you can say ethanol. Amount, maybe the energy is released, but the amount is very low. Now this lactic acid accumulates in the muscles and causes cramps. You are generally aware of the cramps. Okay, it generally occurs in the muscles only. So the lactic acid accumulates and it causes cramps. That is why we often feel cramps while we do heavy exercises. Means whenever we will be doing exercises like running, weightlifting, cycling for a longer duration, okay, because the amount of oxygen that reaching to the cells, or you can say muscles, is limited at particular time. Okay, so that's why as soon as the amount of oxygen decreases, or you can say it becomes less in amount, then the cell starts doing anaerobic respiration. Okay, so in order to get relief from cramps, we can take hot water bath or massage our muscles. Why this is so? Because hot water bath or massage improves the blood circulation in the muscles, and we know that how the oxygen reaches to the different types of the cells or the muscles or various organs with the help of the blood. So by the hot water bath, or you can say the massage, the blood circulation improves and the proper oxygen is reached again, and so slowly and steadily the cramps also goes away once the aerobic respiration is resumed to the normal condition. Okay, as a result, the oxygen reaches the cells easily, which breaks on the lactic acid into carbon dioxide and water. Okay, see what is happening. Two conditions: when oxygen is not present, then the food, that is generally glucose, that does not produce large amount of energy. It produces less amount of energy, but also produces lactic acid. That lactic acid accumulates in the muscles and causes cramps. Okay, so how do we cure those cramps? Those cramps are cured when we take a hot water bath or a massage. What does the massage do? They improve the blood circulation in the muscles. As soon as the blood circulation increases, or you can say it improves, the result of oxygen reaches the cells, and the lactic acid that was formed during the anaerobic respiration, then it breaks down into carbon dioxide and water. And we discussed that the end result of the aerobic respiration was carbon dioxide and water. Okay, so this is the anaerobic respiration in human beings. Okay, students, so these are some important points. These are the points, you go through them again, and then we'll be moving forward. Anaerobic respiration in muscles releases lactic acid. So this is the equation, that glucose, when undergo anaerobic respiration, it forms lactic acid plus energy, very little amount of energy. Next topic is breathing. What is breathing? Breathing can be defined as a process in which organisms, with the help of their respiratory organs, take in oxygen-rich air present in surroundings and release out air that contains high amount of carbon dioxide in it. Breathing occurs continuously in the organism. So what is breathing? When oxygen is taken in, inhaled in, and carbon dioxide is released out, that process is known as breathing. And I told you in the very starting that what is the difference between breathing and the respiration. Okay, respiration process is when the oxygen reacts with the food particles, you can say glucose, to release high amount of energy, that is respiration. But what is simple breathing? It is simply just inhaling and exhaling of the air. Okay, and what amount of which air is inhaled? That is oxygen rich air. And which air is exhaled? That is carbon dioxide rich air. Okay, and breathing occurs continuously in the organisms. Clear? And you know that the oxygen rich air then reaches to the lungs. From lungs it moves to the blood, or transfers to the blood, and the blood takes that oxygen to the various cells, tissues, organs. Okay, and from there, because cells are continuously working, so they have high amount of carbon dioxide. That carbon dioxide is transferred back to the blood, and the blood brings that carbon dioxide again to the lungs, and with the help of the lungs windpipe, it is exhaled out. Okay, inhalation. Inhalation is the process of taking the air that contains oxygen inside the body, because we know that for the respiration process also oxygen is very important for our life, because we get energy from the oxygen. Okay, so it is the process, inhalation is the process of taking air that contains oxygen inside the body. Exhalation, it is a process of releasing out air that contains carbon dioxide out of the body. Okay, so inhalation and exhalation takes place alternatively in the breathing, process. So what does breathing include? The breathing include inhalation and the exhalation. What is inhalation? When we inhale or when we take inside our body the oxygen rich air. What is exhalation? When we release the carbon dioxide rich air outside our body, that is the exhalation. Breathing rate can be defined as the number of times a person breathes in a minute. A breath can be defined as an inhalation followed by exhalation. Okay, so breathing rate, it can be defined as number of times a person breathes in a minute. It can be defined as inhalation followed by exhalation. The breathing rate is not always constant in human beings. Very important point, that it is not always constant. We generally breathe faster when our body needs more energy, for example while exercising. You know that if you keep on running, then slowly the rate of breathing increases. Okay, and when you sit down for quite some time, then the rate comes down to the normal. This is so because the body needs more oxygen that can break down the food and produce more energy. An average adult human being breathes 15 to 18 times in a minute. While exercising, this rate can change up to 25 times a minute. Okay. Now this diagram, students, shows breathing as well as cellular respiration. You can see in breathing the oxygen is inhaled, which is indicated by the blue color arrow, and the carbon dioxide that is exhaled is shown by the red color arrow. Okay, now let's take a look at it step by step. First of all, oxygen rich air is present in the surrounding. We inhale that. Okay, so if you see the blue color arrow, the oxygen, it goes inside the nose, and from the nose through the windpipe it goes to the lungs. Okay, then if you continue watching the blue arrow, then after that the blue arrow is moving toward a cell. For example, the cell there is shown is of the hand. So that oxygen, with the how it will reach to that cell? With the help of the blood. Okay, it is very important. So with the help of the blood, that oxygen reaches to the cell. Now because you have also consumed food, the food will also reach to the cell. Now this oxygen and the food, that is eating, okay, they react with each other. Then you can see the cellular respiration taking place. Glucose plus oxygen, what does it releases? It releases carbon dioxide, water plus energy. And energy is released in the form of ATPs. Okay, how many ATPs are released? 36 ATP. Okay, now what happens? That 6 O2 means, for example, 6 molecules of oxygen, or you can say just oxygen, reaches to the cell. There they react with the food that is present already, and it breaks it into carbon dioxide, water plus energy. So 3 products are released. Now what will happen to the CO2? Now look at the red arrow. The CO2 is, because it is the energy is producing inside the cell, so that CO2 will also be producing inside the cell. So that CO2, now look at the red arrow, it again reaches to the lungs. With the help of the lungs, through the windpipe and through the nasal passage, it is exhaled out of the body. You can see the red arrow. Okay, whereas the water vapor that is in the cell, you can say the water is used by the cell, or sometimes it is also released. Okay, and as energy is considered, energy is used by the cell for the various metabolic processes that are taking place inside the cell. Okay, so these are the two basic processes, breathing and cellular respiration. Obviously these two are linked, you can see, because oxygen is required for the cellular respiration. And how do we get oxygen? With the help of breathing. Okay, see, I am explaining it again. The blue color arrow, it shows the oxygen, it is inhaled, it reaches to the lungs. With the help of the lungs, it gets mixed into the blood, and with the help of blood, it reaches to the cell of throughout the body. If we have taken a single cell, for example, of any place, then that oxygen is reaching to that cell. The food is already placed there, or you can say it has reached already there. Then what happened? That food plus oxygen reacts and it releases high amount of energy, and this process is called respiration, or you can say cellular respiration. What does it releases? It also releases carbon dioxide plus water. Okay, now where does that carbon dioxide go? First it accumulates in the cell. As soon as the amount of carbon dioxide increases, that accumulation increases, what happens? That carbon dioxide transfers to the blood, and the blood takes that carbon dioxide back to the lungs. Okay, from there the lungs, with the help of the windpipe and the nasal passages, the carbon dioxide is exhaled out of the body. Okay, the remaining two products, for example H2O and the energy. As you all know, energy is consumed by the cell for the various metabolic processes that are going on in the body, and water in the form of water vapor, sometimes it is used in the body or in the cell, or sometimes with the help of water vapor it is released out. Okay, so this is the basic of breathing and cellular respiration. Now I hope it is clear to you that breathing and cellular respiration both are connected to each other. Okay, next is, why do we feel hungry after doing a physical activity like walking or running? When we do a physical activity, the food that is present in our body is converted into energy. Since all the food gets consumed in generating the energy, we start feeling hungry. Hence, in order to gain more energy, we need to eat more food. Now, for understanding this, again, we talk about respiration. See, in respiration, glucose reacts with oxygen. Now, what is that glucose? It is the form of food. Okay, these are carbohydrates that are present in the food. So the food, that these are the simpler particles, because you know, in the digestion process, in the stomach, in the intestine, they break to form smaller pieces or the simpler particles. Now that simpler particles reaches to the cell. Okay, as soon as we start doing exercise, now what happens, more and more oxygen will be required and more energy will be required, it is for sure. So because more energy is required, so what happens, the aerobic respiration start happening quickly, and the amount of food that is present, it start getting consumed. So as soon as the food consumes and you are continuously doing the energy, once that food is over, you all, because if you are continue doing the exercise, then you need energy, more energy. So that's why if food is not available, then we start feeling hungry, because cell require food, because oxygen is already coming with the help of breathing. But if food is not coming, then it cannot produce the energy, because for producing the energy, the cell need both the things, food as well as oxygen. Okay, so when we do a physical activity, the food that is present in our body is converted into energy, and since all the food gets consumed in generating the energy, we start feeling hungry, and hence in order to gain more energy, we need to eat more food. Okay students, so in the next video we will be continuing this chapter. Okay, till then students, you keep studying whatever the videos have been uploaded. Okay, whatever the task has been given to you, you have to complete that also. Okay, you have to make the notes, proper notes, because now very most of the chapters have been completed. Okay, with the exercise also. So because you have a lot of work to do, so start doing it also. Okay, I am saying where again and again, you have to make the proper notes of the chapters. Okay, so students, stay inside our house, take care of yourselves. Thank you and have a nice day.